everybody, and welcome to a ETTO spoiler cast for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I'm Will.
I'm Josh.
I'm Sam.
I'm Ben.
Nice,
Nailed
nice.
it.
All right, that is the order we go
Didn't
by
even
now.
plan.
No,
Yep.
that's
Cool.
it. We're locked in now. If I'm like, we'll go around the horn, that is the but it will go to Sam first and me last, which means we'll go reverse in a way. Multiverse.
So it's not the order locked in.
Nothing's locked in because anything can happen because we're in the Multiverse of Madness, which actually probably should have had a different name because me, it's not about that really, is it?
The duoverse of madness.
The duoverse of New York.
Yep.
Really. We're going to get into hot spoilers in a second, but before we do, we should get a kind of overthought over spoilers. We're dancing over the top of them. I'm going to go to Sam. Spoiler-free thoughts. What do you think?
Look, like for the most part, it was fine. I had heard very just not great things before I saw it. So I was very interested, as you are with any movie, to see what takes place. But my expectations were a bit lower than usual for this. But yeah, like for the most part, it's fine. It's got, you know, your normal Marvel flair. But other than that, it's just, it's lacking in a lot of areas for me. So that, I mean, we'll get into that, but I mean, overall, it's okay.
Yeah. Ben?
A solid thumbs up, but just a solid one.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's pretty good, Josh.
That's like as baseline as I can go.
Yeah. Josh?
Yeah.
No one would have expected. I quite enjoyed it. But look, it definitely wasn't like as huge and hyped as I feel like they made it to be, or maybe where our
No, you're close.
our expectations were set, especially post No Way Home.
Yeah. And
that
post
movie-
the trailers for this film.
Yeah, totally. So totally like understand the thumbs up and stuff. That it's just is pretty good.
It's pretty
I
good.
thought it was
But
pretty
it is interesting to note that that's how you felt. Because for you to even go, yeah, is pretty big.
Yeah.
So for
totally.
I've seen it twice. When I came home from the second time, I was like, oh, I think I like it more. But the longer it's sat with me, the more I've kind of, the seams have fallen apart a little bit. I think it's good. I think the thing that I said to you, Sam, before you even saw it, it feels like mid phase 3 when like every movie was good, but none of them were doing anything particularly special. They're all really enjoyable. Like Doctor Strange. This is just a sequel to Doctor Strange in every way, in the sense of it's like, it's great, but I don't really ever need to see that again. So I think we're pretty on even footing. You're maybe a little bit above, but that's Josh.
That's just me.
You're just happy.
Podcast done. We're done.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. One.
It's okay. You can get in before we finish the pod.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. You said like you enjoyed it more the second time you saw it, but then it sort of like simmered down. Did it simmer back down to how you felt the first time, or did it lower
Lower.
than where you were? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's like it's. We'll get into it. You guys, we're in spoiler territory. If you haven't seen the film, go see it. If that rapturous like recommendation,
Single thumbs up.
It's fun. It's fun. Go see the movie. Like it's
Totally.
a fun time.
If you didn't see Morbius because you thought that looked like shit, this is a movie you should see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is basically it.
Absolutely.
You guys, before we started, were talking about the fact you needed a bit of a quick rundown of the film before we go ahead. Shall I try to give that to you?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So the basic thing is that the multiverse is splintering, and that's all due to a little Scarlet Witch who's looking for her children. A plot point that's vaguely touched upon at the end of WandaVision in a post-credit scene, and is never really expanded upon in this film. It's just kind of like, hey, she's really evil because she's looking for her kids. Deal with that now, I guess. So that's happening. She's going after America Chavez, new character in this film who has the ability to traverse the multiverse in star-based portals. She is with one of 4 Doctor Strange in this film. He dies. He and her fall through into our universe, and that's when they meet Doctor Strange and Wong, and Doctor Strange is like, what's going on? She's being chased by a demon, which is really interesting because, you know, Mephisto is a demon.
Yep.
So there was a tiny little
Certainly-
seed for a moment
certainly
there.
could have been.
But that demon turns out to be Wanda, who's trying to get those powers to get her kids across the multiverse. That's kind of it for the whole film. They just kind of fall into different universes, which gets them further away from the plot. And so they just have to get back to the plot as quickly as they can. But the plot keeps going after them because Wanda chases them through the multiverse as well. Mm-hmm. That's kind of it. It ends with Wanda dying, but definitely not dying because she realizes that she doesn't need to have her kids. But, you know, the next time we see her, she'll probably be looking for her kids in a different way.
Yeah.
So nothing really changes by the end of this film. But for Doctor Strange has a new eye. That's one of the big details.
There you go.
So that's
Not
the
a
plot
new
of
eye covering his old eyes, a extra eye on top.
Yes.
Yes, true. Yeah, he
Important
already
distinction
had two.
because Thor has a new eye.
That's
but
true.
Not an
very
extra
good.
eye.
Good correction,
It's an
Ben.
additional eye.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good one. So that's the plot of the film. The biggest thing for this film is the director, which is Mr. Sam Raimi, who took over from Scott Derrickson, who did the first film. Sam Raimi comes with amazing accessories. It sounds like an episode of That Figures. A plethora of weird visual stylings, and he does them a lot in this film. I think of us all, Sam, you seem to be the most tied to the Raimi films of the Spider-Man ones. How'd you feel that ended up here? All those kind of tropes and stuff.
See, because like that was the one thing that I was trying to sort of look for in this film. I was trying to look for shots, scenes that, you know, had that, you know, that essence of Sam Raimi. But like there wasn't really anything that like, you know, was too out there for me to notice. So like, you know, and the one thing I will say is that there were some shots that I did enjoy. I was like, oh, that's cool. That's nice, you know, whatever. But for the most part, it's kind of like, it's like he forgot it was a multiverse movie and who his characters were. So every now and then he had to throw in a really quirky shot. So he's like, oh, I know. We'll have the camera go into the pupil of Wanda's eye. And it was
a few times.
It was just kind of like, for me, it was like there was moments where he forgot what he was making. And I can understand that, being that this was made in like the peak of COVID over in the UK, there's going to be things that go wrong. There's going to be shots that he probably wishes he could have redone, or things he could have added, but he just didn't have the time or budget or whatever. But yeah, so there wasn't really anything where I was like, oh yeah, Sam Raimi, oh my God. Definitely wasn't anything to like take me back to when I was a kid watching his films for Spider-Man, except for like one character that was in it. But so it was fine, but nothing that was like, oh my God.
That's a fair point, that the Sam Raimi Spidey films are more old. This film does a lot of strange, weird things in the more horror element that he kind of delves deep into. Like the weird mystical sequences where there's lots of montages and they kind of cut out heads to fade between stuff. That's kind of the big Raimi elements, was he just was like, how do I do this scene? Montage with some weird like George Harrison music underneath it. Ben, you're a comic boy. Do you think that Sam Raimi works well with this, with the kind of comic book genre?
I've never really thought he worked well with the comic book genre. He works well with the horror genre, which I'm sure we'll get into more. I think is where this movie thrives. In kind of campy PG horror stuff. Those are the moments where the movies are the strongest. I came out of it thinking, he was like the perfect pick for like this era of comic books. It feels very much based around 80s comic books. But the more and more I think about it, the more I'm like, no, it was just the horror specific elements that I think he really shone with, and those are things that you find a bit more iconically in some of those older comics. I don't think he actually
he doesn't add much to the MCU.
I don't think he's that good of like a comic book director, because I think, as Sam pointed out, he gets very lost when he has a lot to deal with. And I think this film has a weird kind of identity crisis of what exactly it wants to be. It wants to be an MCU film. It wants to be a multiverse film. It wants to be a horror film. It also wants to be a story about her mum and her kids, and also a sequel to Doctor Strange 1. and also kind of a follow-on from
No Way Home as well.
No Way Home, but that just gets thrown out the window instantly. So it's like I think it's the Sam Raimi superhero film I like the most. I'm not a big fan of the original Spider-Mans. I enjoy that they gave it to him, and they're like kind of diversifying the kinds of directors they get on these projects, and maybe embracing the campiness a bit more of comic books, because like back in early MCU, the early 2010s, they weren't doing that at all. And I think the more pulpy and campy you get nowadays, often the more I enjoy it, at least. But I think someone like Taika Waititi is a lot better at pulling those elements in, as well as like good filmmaking than Sam Raimi is. And I think that's my general vibes on it. If we see another film from him in the MCU, I'm not going to be angry. Like, I think it's a fun film, but I don't think he necessarily excels at this genre the way some people think he do. Thinks he do.
Think
he
does? Think he does?
Think he do.
Yeah, I think he do.
Think he do.
How'd you feel about Sam Raimi, Josh? You reckon? Because you grew up with those films, probably more than actually more than the three of us. You're actually
I'm an old man.
You're an old fart.
Saw all of them at the movies.
Yeah.
I look again. I guess because I didn't come out of it like mind blown. It was like, yeah, sure. It was pretty good. I think like you and I watched all of the Raimi movies leading up to No Way Home. And there were elements that were recognizable from those. Women screaming.
There's a lot of women screaming.
One of them. There's a bunch of them. But I guess, I don't know. I'm not one to like take a thing and be like, hey, that's the same all that much, especially in like style and that sort of things in directing. Music, yes. I can pull that out and be like, I know that. But this probably less so. But I guess, I don't know, like some of the camera work and stuff that we were talking about, like a lot of zooms through things and like transitions from one thing to another.
I remember it the first time I watched it, the friggin' it goes from Strange falling on the ground to a circle of pure black to open circle on Wanda, and it's like, what the fuck, man?
It's not like any other Marvel movie that we've had so far.
I feel like it takes you out of it a lot, and I remember Josh, Will, and I all saw it together, and the amount of times I think we laughed, but not because something funny was happening in the movie, but because some weird shot transition happened that we were like, that feels unnecessary. I think
shot.
that's honestly like, I think the biggest part of it that frustrates me is just there's these weird moments that I'm like, I'm taken out of the movie when I don't want to be. But
that's a very good way to put it. I guess the standout performance of this film, it's not Sam Raimi, but it's probably Elizabeth Olsen. She puts her all into this in a way that Wanda never really has been, which is cool. There's been seeds of it throughout the films, and so it's cool that it culminates in this. As I said, I think if WandaVision had, maybe the final episode of WandaVision had ended, and I mean, it's already a rushed episode, ended a bit earlier, and had her spend a bit more time with the Darkhold and a bit more of a like, just give us a bit more of an understanding of how much it's controlling her. I think that her character in this film would have been next level. There's a lot that comic book fans we can deal with, and I think that, you know, once they told us the Darkhold corrupts, it's kind of like, okay, so that's what's going on there. But I think the tonal shift of her character from the end of WandaVision, where she understands that controlling people was a bad thing to do, to in this, she's like, I can just murder people and that's kind of okay, was a bit to take in the first time.
Yeah, totally. I agree with that, because at the end of WandaVision, there is no point in which
you're like, she's a villain.
You're thinking like she's evil.
Yeah.
Because you hear her kids in the post-credit scene sort of being like, Mom, help, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, she's going to go save her kids next. That's cool. What a cool idea. Yeah. Like find them wherever they are. Nah. she's just gone complete nutso.
Yeah.
And is going to, you know, murder someone's mother and replace them and hope they don't notice.
Totally.
What?
It seems a weird shift.
I have thoughts on this, because there's this big debate, I think, since this movie came out, swirling around this and whether it like just ignores WandaVision.
Yeah.
And I don't think it ignores WandaVision. Like, ultimately, at the core of the WandaVision story, I rewatched, like, all of it in the week before Multiverse of Madness, so it's pretty fresh in my head. And I think at the core of that story is the fact that Wanda has been through so much messed up stuff and continues to go through so many traumatic events that it, like, is just weighing her down so much. And I can totally see the character progression, like, that goes from there to be at this point where she has these kids, she has to decreate them, and is, like, purely just traumatized by that, and then finds a way that she can possibly bring them back. I can see kind of the divergence there in the story. It is a weird disconnect when, like, the last main scene of that is her being, like, really lovely to her family and really lovely to Vision, and they're talking about, oh, we'll see each other again and that kind of thing, for her to then jump to this.
Yeah.
Especially in, like... yeah, especially when that is shown as, like, the resolution of the whole arc of WandaVision, and her being the villain in that is that, like, she's like, oh, no, it's not okay. You're totally correct.
Yeah.
It's a weird jump. However, I think the main problem and why people are not liking it as much in Multiverse of Madness is there's just no dichotomy to the character. There's no...
She is bad the entire time.
It doesn't bring in any of the humanity of the character that we saw in WandaVision, and if we're supposed to believe that this is the same Wanda that we saw in WandaVision, it's not like a different one from a different multiverse, which could have worked, then, like, it definitely feels like, why isn't she having those flinching moments where she's like, is this okay? Because she has them all throughout WandaVision.
Yeah.
I guess the idea is, the Darkhold corrupts fully, but it removes any of that doubt that makes her, like, this weird anti-hero kind of character. She's thrown straight into the villain. I think she's a fantastic villain in this, and I thought it was a good misdirect they kind of did for us to make us think, oh, she might be, like, an anti-hero, and she's just full on a villain, and, like, is a great horror villain. But in the broader scope of her story, I think the main part that we lost from WandaVision into this was that, like, humanity underneath that always, like, peeks through the witchiness, so to speak.
I think part of it could have also been good if they explored... Well, if the argument was maybe a little more... Not quite, like, relatable, but, like, had something to it.
Yeah.
Because, like, clearly her motives were bad.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a bad idea. But even, like, Thanos, people came up with arguments that were, like, not a terrible idea.
The one here is that mothers need their children. Like, that's their...
But then
which
she's
feels like
murdering someone's mother to become their mother as well.
Father,
like it's
as well. As we'll get to.
It's also an ideal that feels, like, dated by about 40 years at this point. Like, we've moved on as a society from children having to have mothers or whatever, or mothers needing to have children. Like, it's just so not the world we live in, that it's definitely a weird motive to get your head around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's an odd one. But as a villain, I think we can agree very good. One of her standout scenes is when we get to the Illuminati in whatever universe. It's like 688 or something, I think Christine says.
838.
838?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. That one. The Illuminati arrive, and we have Monica Rambeau as Captain Marvel, Hayley Atwell's Captain Carter, Black Bolt with the dude from Inhumans. Fucking hell, I'm having Inhumans returning.
Anson Mount.
Anson Mount, thank you. It's a great name. It's just not.
It is a fantastic
name. It's a great name.
Mordo is also on the council, and of course Xavier, and then Sam. Who's the final one?
Oh, William. And I'm so upset because this was the thing that got spoiled.
Oh no.
For me. And I was so upset. But John Krasinski as Reed Richards.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's like, I think the best thing about it is that looking at him in this movie, it's like that's just all the fan art combined into one.
The way his appearance is that one shot that's always used on every article.
Absolutely.
Like it's the same so pose.
Good. And like him having like the beard and everything, it was amazing. But the thing that the thing that took me out of that scene a little bit, and like I mentioned this to you, Will, and very quickly you were like, well, it wasn't all of them, but, and I did realize that as I thought about it more. But when Strange enters that little chamber, they're all in their seats, all nice and neat. They're sitting there, they're waiting for him, and then Reed just comes out of this like portal. And I'm like, but weren't you already here? I was like, what the hell?
Totally. And it's such a like it's they're going through the council. He's not there until it's like, and the smartest man in our universe. It's like fucking hell. Like, this is such a
I understand they wanted it to obviously have like a bit of an impact, like, you know, seeing him for the first time as that character. But you could have literally just like swung the camera around slowly to him sitting in the chair. Like, I think that would have been so much cooler.
Or you know what? Just cut him out of that earlier shot.
Yeah.
Even.
Yeah.
You know?
I
liked like the phase-in effect he has with his like assumedly like Fantastic Four tech or whatever that he's got working. Yeah. Like, I don't see why he can't just not be in that shot, because you're right, they're very clearly like all there.
Yeah. Absolutely. But yeah, like it was a scene that like I really, really loved, but there's a part of me that feels like anything that took place involving this group of people, it was like its own thing. Like for a second, you kind of forgot what you were watching in a way, because you were like, oh, there's all these new people, and like you're so interested in them and that they're different versions of these characters that we know and love. And then it's like when you get back to like the threat at hand, you're like, oh yeah, that's right, all that's happening.
Well, like the phrasing that I introduced on the car ride to the cinema is that there are moments in a Marvel film which is dick in hand, where you're like, something crazy is about to happen. I need to brace myself. And in that sequence, Dick was in hand, and before anything exciting happens, they cut back to Wanda, and it was like, oh, yeah, I guess so. But like, let's go back over there. And it's almost, Ben, like you were saying, a lot of the transitions and stuff take you out of the movie. I love that sequence, but it's so separate to what the main plot of it doesn't like add any weight to it. And so it's, like I feel like everyone in the theater was just sitting there going, "Oh my god, it's John Krasinski!" And they're like introducing these elements of the multiverse and all these cool things, but all you're like, "Oh my god, it's John Krasinski!" It's like you're not paying attention anymore.
I honestly just wanted to hear him talk for half an hour.
Absolutely.
Every time we cut back, it was like, "Oh yeah, speak, boy."
But the thing, like in saying that, Will, it's a thing where it's like it was very out of place in a way, but there is part of me that likes it because it's very much in a way like comic books, where like a character will appear for a few seconds in a few frames and then they're gone. So I understand it and it does make sense, but it's a thing where it's like, you know, you bring all these characters in and then you get your main antagonists to kill them. So then, but then for like the next 10 minutes, you're like, well, are they going to come back? Are they going to appear again? Where are we going to see them again in the MCU? Like, if he does not come back for Fantastic Four, you will see me in the streets rioting. I'll be on the news. Most wanted man in Australia. I don't care.
When we get to the credit scene, you should talk about your one, because it was a great idea, and I wish it had happened. For me, it's totally, you're so right that it's such a comic booky thing. The thing I wished of it was that there was a little bit more of Maria, and of Reed, because there's an element of like they're there. And it's cool for people that know, and you know, these movies are so far beyond for the general public. It's fine, but because these are characters that have never existed in the universe before, I kind of wanted to see them exist a little bit longer. Because I mean, the deaths don't have to mean much, but they don't mean anything, and especially Reed, because he's not called Mr. Fantastic. There's none of that. I know my mother is going to see it and be like, who the fuck was that guy? And who was that? He does one stretchy move and it's completely off camera. As he throws his hand towards camera, it moves over. Like, you never see him stretch apart from when he stretches a whole lot. So I loved it. And I think that, you know, any more frames would have been too much. But there is, I think of all of them, he may be the one that was shafted the most. And, you know, it's probably because they want to save that for when he is on screen.
I like that you didn't mention Black Bolt needing more time.
No
one cares.
No one cares. But when what we got was amazing. Like, it was brilliant.
Yeah, he was cool. I liked him.
I don't know. Part of me is like, this is the perfect amount of like cameos they should have put in this film. I think that was my thought, like when we were leaving on the night. It was like they shouldn't do any more than that. And if they want to focus the story on Strange and Wanda, keep it to that amount of cameos. Like, it's cool. We get a pop from the audience and then we move on. But there's also the part of me that's like, if you name your film The Multiverse of Madness, you've made, at this point, other properties about the multiverse that show that characters can come through that you know and all that kind of thing. Yeah. You've made like What If, you've made Spider-Man No Way Home at this point. Like you have this established knowledge in the MCU now that the multiverse means a world of possibilities.
Yeah.
And then the one scene we get that is like particularly interesting about the multiverse is 5 people and they all die within like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a cool, effective scene that like all these super powerful people are being killed by Wanda because Wanda is super powerful. Like, no denial. The way she kills everyone, very cool. Like, the way she kind of plays with them all is brilliant. But it's just like, I don't know.
Have a bit more fun.
It's this kind of thing where clearly they wanted to focus it as a Strange and Wanda story and have it be like 2 hours and succinct and everything. And going into it, I was like, oh, that's interesting, that's bold. I kind of like that they're doing that. But I'm sitting here now and I'm more like, this should have been one of your 3-hour films. This should have been one of your really big hitting films with like a lot of stuff in it. I would not have had an issue sitting down and like taking all this in if it meant that we got like more of the multiverse, we got them jumping between all these different places. Not necessarily too many more cameos, but just having like variety when they keep telling us that the multiverse is full of possibilities, and then we don't get many of the possibilities. Like, ultimately, the 838 universe is not that different from ours.
They could have fallen into any of them, and they fell into the one that had flowers.
Yeah, it's just flowers on the buildings instead. That was
and like a slightly different story for them all, but they still killed Thanos and stuff. Like, I don't know. It's this kind of thing where I definitely like.
Yeah,
I'm not totally against the way they took it and going for like the more focused story, but I think there's another route here that the more I think about it, the more I'm like, I want to see that reality, that multiverse.
I really think that the biggest problem actually with this film is its title. Like, legitimately, if it was not called Multiverse of Badness, so many of our issues wouldn't exist. It just set up such a precedent. And there is that beautiful sequence of Strange and Chavez falling through realities. And for me, because I knew that bit, because that bit was kind of in the trailer, a little chunk of that. I thought where we were headed, which would have been awesome, was them not falling through, but running through, similar to in the first Strange movie, where when they're running through the city and all the railings are kind of moving around them, them running with Strange running behind her, and it kind of is switching through it, and Strange is making, or Chavez probably more so, making use of each reality they're finding each other in. Like, just a sequence as short as that could have really boosted it. But yeah, look, when it comes down to it, the amount of movie that is in this and the places they go is great. It just doesn't speak to what the kind of promise of the title is, and the promise of the premise as well, especially with a character like Chavez who can go anywhere.
Her literal power is going through the multiverse.
Yeah. And speaking of, she's great. She's playing a 14-year-old in this, but I can never remember. Shotty Gomez, I think, is her name.
I think it's pronounced Xochitl.
Xochitl. There you go.
I think. Joshy wrote a note somewhere, so I'm going to find it.
I think it was Sochi, but I'm not sure. Okay. She's 16 in real life, playing a 14-year-old. It's peak Marvel with some Tom Holland energy. And she's great. She fits straight into the cast. Exciting. The thing that I friggin' adore is how, like, because the whole thing is in Egypt and I think in China, the sequence where she shows her mums and stuff, that was requested to be removed, and that's why it didn't end up playing in a few countries. And I kind of thought it was going to be a Marvel Disney level thing of, like in Rise of Skywalker, there's a lesbian kiss and they just could cut that out for certain countries. They could have cut out this sequence and been like, here's the movie. It wouldn't have affected the film. And I just wanted to, it's a bare minimum, but it's a big ups that they stuck to it and said, even though this isn't story driven, it's important that it's in our film. So deal with it or you don't get it. And I was just really proud of Marvel for that. Josh, how you feeling? America Chavez, she's going to shake up the universe.
Just quickly, you were right. It is Sochi.
Sochi, there you go.
Or I think it's Sochil, but yeah.
Sochil. Okay. Yeah. We'll use both of them.
Cool.
Yeah.
I loved her. I didn't know all that much about her. I remember seeing, I think most of what I know from her is looking at covers of her comics or seeing her like seeing some art or whatever.
Yep.
So I knew about the big star. Didn't know what it did. Thought it was just like a teleporter or something.
Yep.
Didn't realize it was
Yeah.
dimensional.
Yep.
But yeah, she was great. She seems like she's gonna be like a lot of fun.
Totally.
Going forward, keen to see her meeting other young Avengers.
Yeah,
and
there's
stuff
enough
like
of them
that.
in there.
Like,
Yeah.
get like imagine her with like Kate Bishop and stuff. Like
So
them
good.
running from dimension to dimension. That's one of the interesting things though, because if her power is going through
That's
the
what I meant. It
multiverse,
shakes it up.
then the whole like using her ever going forward is hopefully going to be super interesting.
It's the Dwayne the Rock Johnson Black Adam situation. It's the what is it, Sam? Give me the words. What does he say? Doesn't he say the balance of the DC?
The hierarchy of power in the DC universe is about to change.
Yeah, that's Chavez. That's what she's gonna do.
Totally. Yeah, like it'll be so cool because if she's ever utilized, it means they're going somewhere else because that's almost the only reason to get her for something.
For sure.
Is to go to another universe. That'll be super interesting.
Yeah, super sick. And visually speaking, that's a lot of her powers are very unique to the MCU. Ben,
They look great too.
They look very good because the MCU has generally just been glowing things, and it was cool to see like a comic booky power of just like a big fucking star.
Just punching nothing. And it exploding into a star.
I heard some people complaining that like it was too comic booky, like it looked like it was just like a star just like straight out of a comic book panel, and I'm like, nah, I'm done with just boring wispy like Scarlet Witch has like weird red mist. Like give us like some actual cool visuals and that's one thing this film like definitely delivers on. Visually it's probably one of the more interesting Marvel films in a while. And I love how her powers look because it's just comic booky enough, but it's also just like MCU enough. You know?
Yeah, because otherwise it'll look just like a sorcerer opening a circle portal.
Yeah.
Like that would be it,
totally.
and that's freaking boring as hell.
For sure.
We don't want that.
Let's go around. What's everyone's favorite scene in this apart from Jonathan? It's fine. John Krasinski. You've got to skip over that. Sam, where are you lying? What's the moment for you?
My favorite scene is when he's at the wedding and he sees a commotion, he hops off the balcony, and like the cloak appears, and then he gets the suit. I was like, oh, well, that's freaking cool. Like, from there, and like, this is, I think, like, because from there, I was like, oh, this is sick. This movie is going to be great. And then from there, it just goes downhill a little bit. I'm like, oh, okay. But I was like, hey, at least he hopped off a balcony in a cool way.
It was pretty cool. Like, you've claimed mine, because that would, I actually quite like that whole fight, because it actually is the most Raimi bit. Like it feels like a Spider-Man fight from like the original films a little bit. Just kind of the simplicity, and it's also the sequence where he summons big goblin hands to pull out a lamppost.
Yeah, that's cool.
I was about to mention that this has like a really cool use of his powers as opposed to like previous Doctor Strange appearances in the MCU. Like they finally were like, fuck it. Let's just use all of them. Like, let's use all the powers he has in the comics. We don't even need to name them all. We don't need to explain any of them.
Speaking of that, it would have been beautiful if he actually did call out all the things.
Yeah.
By the things at the hands of the goblins.
Yeah. The waters of Watum.
Waters of Watum. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because does he say it in? No, I was going to say because he uses the bands of something in Infinity War, but he doesn't actually say it.
Bands of Sitarak, I believe.
Yeah. He uses the spells, but he's not saying it, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Josh, what's your favorite? I mean, is it?
Yeah.
Is it the bit with all the lines and the things?
Oh, that is a good moment. I was going to say something else, but it's in the same universe. So
okay.
I might quickly double up. The fight with music.
Yeah.
So funny. So random, so ridiculous. Weird. It's like, to some extent, like, why?
Yeah.
Like,
it doesn't mean anything.
It seems so random for Doctor Strange, but then, like, it's so unrelated, but we see in Doctor Strange 1 that he has this crazy knowledge of music and when stuff, like who wrote what, when it was released, but that doesn't really translate to this music stuff. So I'm kind of like, I can see a very loose link.
It's tenuous. Yeah.
But it's a fun looking scene either way. But when they enter that universe, just seeing it like just decimated.
Yep.
I felt like there was a real thing for people that read Marvel comics.
Yeah.
When they actually mention that this is a universe where there has been an incursion, which is where two universes from within the multiverse actually collide into each other.
Yeah.
And destroy each other in some sort of way. There was a few moments throughout the movie that have sort of like comic book references that you wouldn't really understand or pick up on. Probably like
did it reference comic books, Josh? Did it reference like a particular comic book even?
Yeah, maybe.
Like way more than we ever could have expected.
maybe it did. But yeah, there was a few little drops like that, and that one in particular was kind of the biggest one. Which was knowing about incursions and that is a thing that happens in the Marvel multiverse.
Yeah.
I really like that. I think that just sort of pricked my ears up a little bit, and I was like, have they mentioned this before? Is anyone else going to understand this, or just people that actually read comics?
And it's a good tease towards where we're heading in terms of incursions. There's a big one coming.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed multiple things within that section of the
the Dark
multiverse
Strange
and the movie and stuff. Yeah, Dark Strange. It's cool.
Benny boy.
You guys have like taken some of the ones I liked, so I'm gonna try and find a different one. I just want to mention the bit. I didn't realize this, but when I was like listening to another podcast about this, apparently in that opening scene when he's at the wedding, he's got a little red pocket square, and that's where the cape actually comes out of.
Cool.
And then at the end, and then the end sequence where he's walking on the street, he's got a red scarf on, and then he does the same thing with the scarf.
Amazing.
Into his cloak. So
makes sense.
that's a very cool detail, and like I think I am gonna go back and rewatch this later in the week with another friend, and I think it'll be cool to like kind of pick out a lot of those little details that I might have missed.
You have other friends other than us?
What the fuck, man? Excuse me.
I know, it's kind of weird. But the other scene I want to mention is kind of it's right after Josh's scene actually. It's when Doctor Strange decides to dreamwalk.
Of course.
Then reveals that he's going to dreamwalk in the zombie body, which looks like hokey as all hell. Like it definitely looks janky, and like I think that actually kind of adds to it a lot of the time.
Totally.
But like the moment they kind of start to reveal, like he's gonna like use the souls to help him, and then he gets like the sick ass cape with all the trapped souls or whatever they're called flowing out behind him, and so then you through that entire final fight like uses them in cool and unique ways. It's like it's actually probably the most unique use of his powers in the entire film, other than maybe the music bit, where he's not actually just like conjuring something to pick something up or like throwing a spell. He's actually like thinking about what these souls will do to like he chucks them at Wanda to like distract her while like help while he gets them to help him do other things. And I think it's very cool. It's kind of it's a good payoff to the most obvious foreshadowing when they bury it earlier in the film and are like, oh, this is a weird place to bury it. It's probably going to break some rental laws or whatever. And it's like, okay, that's coming back. But at the same time, it's like the fact that he takes it up there to Mount Wundagore, which is also a cool little comic pop, and then has this kind of final fight with Wanda. It adds an extra dynamic to it so that it's not just two sorcerers kind of flinging spells at each other. It's an interesting little twist on it all.
Totally.
It's cool that it sort of shows his power, like how powerful he is, because the fight at the start, he's conjuring stuff that he's probably used before, but he's never done any of this.
Before,
he hasn't, let alone in another body.
But
he hasn't sort of done this sort of like, actual dark magic. But he still has control over it.
I like that the 838 Christine also kind of like pushes him to it, because she's clearly seen this other Doctor Strange like kind of embrace those darker parts. And it's like, I've seen you done this. You're the master of the mystic arts. Like, this is the kind of thing you can do. This is the time you need to do it. And then my other favorite thing about it is that when Wong shows up, Wong's just like, yes, Strange. He doesn't give a shit that he's conjured all this dark magic up and stuff.
He's like, literally like, I don't want to ask. No, I love it.
So funny.
Wong is amazing in this film, and God, I hope he gets a bigger role in the next one. He deserves so much more.
He needs his own like property that is like more focused on him. He almost needs his own like show, because I feel like he just keeps getting all these cameos. And every time he cameos, we're like, he is fantastic. Even in this film, which is supposed to be more focused on him, he's the bloody Sorcerer Supreme.
Yeah.
He gets thrown off a cliff for half of it. And it's like, come on.
This is from, I think Reese Wild said it on Twitter, or someone said it, that they should give him a Strange Academy show, which is set in the blip years. So because obviously he has a lot of involvement with Kamar-Taj because he becomes Supreme, that you give him, there's a comic run currently where it's basically X-Men for magic people.
So good.
It's one of the best runs you can read, like legitimate recommend. And yeah, like I think that would be brilliant. I think a Disney Plus 8 episodes, because 6 is not enough Disney Plus, run of a Strange Academy thing with Wong would be awesome. So that's a good place.
You could just, like, in my head, I'd be like, why is it called Strange Academy? But Strange just died, and
it's in his name.
It's named after him because he was the Sorcerer Supreme.
Or even set it now and have America there and our boy Rintra, or Carrot, as we like to call him.
Yes, Carrot. Do we need to explain
Sam will not understand that reference whatsoever.
We'll get into Comic Cast references very quickly.
Good.
I just want to quickly say my favorite that isn't all of those is actually just the start of the movie with Strange Supreme, Ponytail Supreme. I thought that was such a phenomenal opening to a film. Like, holy shit. Like, your reaction was great. You're just like, okay.
Yeah, we're just in this. Like,
the music is great.
So
like, that is, I think, the track I listen to the most, because it has this, because it starts on black and jumps straight in the action. Has this great like slow build. It's like and it just starts, and it gives me the appearance of Michael Giacchino's theme within 10 seconds. So I was on board, which was very nice.
Remains one of the best themes in the entire MCU, but like terribly underused.
Terribly underused in this film. But yeah, I love that opening sequence. I love seeing Strange with a different color power set. He obviously uses a lot of different things in this, but it was cool having an ice Strange, which was a unique flair. And also it kind of tied with America Chavez. And I like that Strange coming back at the end, as much as he tries to basically kill her in that universe, is something, it felt like they had a bond even in that little sequence. Like it's a glimpse at the apparent two other Strange that Chavez had met, that she's looking for her family, so she grows these bonds with people so quickly. And even in that little 5-minute sequence, she already has that with that Strange. And yeah, I love that opening sequence. And yeah, quickly on the music, real good. Could have been better. Maybe a little bit too much Danny Elfman and not enough Giacchino, but that was always going to happen with his score. But Ben and I, we both agreed it was very good.
Yeah.
In the end, what else we got? Quickly, Cumberbatch deserves just around the horn just to say how fucking amazing he was in this film. Like, just before this movie came out, I realized that he was Sherlock. It's like I've forgotten he's so not Sherlock anymore. He's such especially in this film, like each Strange is so different. Even that one that has like 10 seconds of remorse on Titan before he gets destroyed. It's like, that's a different person. Not Oscar Isaac level, but a good amount of like, you've definitely.
I was saying to Will and Josh when we left that the amount of acting versus themselves that is happening in the MCU in this phase is ridiculous. Like, we've had it with WandaVision, with the two Visions. We've had it with Wanda in this film.
Yeah.
We've had it with Doctor Strange against himself like multiple times.
Good.
Oscar Isaac. So it's just like, all right. At some point, we need to get them an actual actor to act across from, because like
they're gonna go insane.
It's funny because they've also hired whatever her name is that's going to be She-Hulk.
Oh yeah,
and that's all
true.
she did in the thing
Orphan Black.
Exploded her out into the scene in
just
Orphan
a bunch
Black.
of clones.
Basically just her with like 2 other people in that entire show, but there's like 30 of her.
Amazing.
Crazy.
But yeah,
so
I
she'll be great at it if they ever have to do that with her.
Yeah.
I agree, Will. Benedict Cumberbatch needs a bit more of a shout out, because Elizabeth Olsen is going to get a lot of praise for this film, but like Benedict Cumberbatch did a phenomenal job. And I think, as you say, he's basically just like, he embodies Doctor Strange at this point in the way that Robert Downey Jr. embodies Iron Man is Iron Man. It's just like, it is his character.
Yeah.
And like, I read a comic now and I'm like, that's Benedict Cumberbatch.
Absolutely.
It's Doctor Strange.
I feel like as the comics seem to do, they morph the comic character to resemble more so the actor nowadays. So it's probably more familiar.
And
for them as for people coming into comics.
So well, speaking of that, a character in the comics that has been morphed into for a long period of time, for the last like 10 years, Mr. Fantastic has looked like John Krasinski.
Yeah.
Do you want to give us your post credits that you wanted to see? Sam, you know, you're gonna be so sad it didn't happen.
So
he said this to us as the credits was happening as well.
Yeah.
So we were half expecting.
Our expectations went so far.
Yeah. So I was very excited. I was hoping that probably the post credits, the very end post credits, would have been, because I guess, all right, the question on everybody's lips now is, will John Krasinski actually still be our Mr. Fantastic, or was he just the Mr. Fantastic in that universe?
Yeah.
My thought of maybe just confirming that with fans and whatever is that the post credits would be Reed Richards and Susan waking up in bed, Reed just jumping up in bed and saying something about how he dreamed that he had died to some sorceress, a witch in another universe, because that's what we've been told in this film, that dreams are actually things that are happening to
in another universe.
Yeah, yourself in another universe. Yeah. So that just would have been a cool thing, but having that as John Krasinski and something linking where he's woken up to our MCU.
Yeah.
Just to be like,
and there's a reveal of Emily Blunt as well.
And Emily Blunt, being there.
I think that one was more unlikely because she seems to not want that.
She's pretty off.
Like,
she's off there. Yeah.
That's a bummer.
Which is unfortunate, but
yeah. So that just would have been like, I was really hoping for that. That would have been a very cool moment, just confirming the
Krasinski.
That he was
because now everyone's asking the question, and it's like, I don't think you want that ultimately, because unless it is 100% him, like I don't think you want people asking that question, because the more and more time it gets built up, the more and more people are going to be disappointed.
For sure. I think it's a situational, like, you know, Comic-Con is coming up in the next month or so. I think they'll either announce it there or they'll give it the kind of spoiler grace period that the Spidey's got, and then an announcement will probably come out. Fantastic Four is shooting next year, or this year. So it's one of the 2 years. So
they need a new director, though. So.
They do need a director. We'll see.
Just to be clear, do we all think it's going to be him? Because I personally do. I don't see how they wouldn't at this point. As I said, I think it just disappoints too many people if you don't.
Sam?
And he did a serviceable job. In the time he was in.
Totally.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, I think it's the thing where, like, people have been campaigning for him to be this character for so long, like years now. It's like, if you use him just for this and then really don't bring him in for the full body of a film where he is, you know, that character, it's like, what are you doing?
And the thing that I think nails it down, obviously Patrick Stewart's not coming back. He will be 85 by the time an X-Men film.
His line reads in this are also like
very slow.
I'm sorry, Patrick. Like we should stop bringing you back for these.
Totally. Yeah. Like, we'll see him in Secret Wars alongside Hugh Jackman and all the rest, but he's not going to be our Charles. But on the team is Hayley Atwell, and it's you know, someone who's played Monica's mother. It's like everyone else on that council is from the MCU in some form or another. The Inhuman show was in the MCU when it was created. Yeah, that's true. So it's like, if Krasinski isn't, it'd be a really weird choice, because it's like he's the only, apart from Charles, but fucking hell, he's old. Apart from him, it's like, he's the only one that wouldn't continue through, because Captain Carter's going to turn up in something like again. Like,
I hope so.
Yeah, Black Bolt will look like that because they made a perfect comic book costume. Like, it's got to be him.
The thing, I think, I can't remember if it was Will or Josh that mentioned this, but like, there's a thing in the comics where Reed is the same throughout the multiverse, like the same person. There's not like the variants of him like there are Loki. However,
he's almost a Nexus being, like Wanda.
Yeah, but he is evil in most of those other universes. So it's like, it's kind of even weirder if they then go, nah, let's just get someone else. Yeah, because
I've seen some incredible people of color and different different choices, which would be amazing. Yeah, but they really have set a precedent now that would be so hard to break. Because I have been holding on to the guy that plays Chitty in The Good Place has been one of the fan picks, and I'm like, holy fucking shit. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Cool.
But yeah,
My one for Mr. Fantastic was Rahul Kohli. I thought that would have been really good.
Yeah.
But again, as you say, I think now that it's been done, I think
Is that the guy that looks basically exactly the same as...
He looks like Krasinski in a way.
Krasinski?
Yeah. But he's
a man of color.
Yeah,
I think he's Pakistani.
Yeah,
I think,
Pakistani.
but I could be wrong. Yeah,
but they've also picked him as adult Ezra, and I think that would be phenomenal as well.
Yeah,
I've seen that going around.
Because I think a friend of mine from work who also saw it on last Wednesday night messaged me, and he was like, I was trying to work out whether it was John Krasinski or Rahul.
Yeah.
And I was like, interesting, because I wouldn't have jumped to the other guy. I
Yeah.
barely know who the other guy is, but that's quite funny, because I looked that guy up. I'm like,
Oh yeah.
whoa, okay.
Haunting of Bly Manor, and what was that other show that they released by the same person last year? The one I actually watched, which is funny. It's the one about the church.
Yep.
Midnight Mass. Midnight Mass.
He's in
that.
Yes,
he's
yes,
in that.
totally.
And he's fantastic in that. So
Yeah.
he's slowly getting more bigger name roles,
He is.
which is good.
I'm sure he'll get an MCU thing at some point. He's
Yeah,
been
he
pining for
definitely
Star Wars and Marvel for so long. But speaking of amazing, we were in our comic cast, specifically you, Ben, picked the perfect story possible. Now,
Which
Sam,
we were unaware of. We didn't think so at the time.
when we read the comic, well, some of us read half of the comics.
Some of us did.
It very much seemed like it had nothing to do with the multiverse, had nothing to do with Wanda, had nothing to do with America Chavez. Literally so far removed from everything this film had set up. But so much of this film is in the... Like, the deepest cut for me was this film deals a lot with why Doctor Strange can't face love or face his own consequences. And that is the driving force of these 6-7 issues we read. Which is wild.
This is like a collection of 6 issues from the end of the 1980s run of Doctor Strange.
Yep.
And it's like, that's a central theme. There's the other probably really deep cut, which I didn't even see and Will didn't see, and Josh pointed out, was that the person who destroys the Darkhold in like the main universe, when Wong is tied up, this person comes along, and Wong calls her Sarah, which is a deep cut from this comic where Sarah is another one of Doctor Strange's helpers, who works in the Sanctum with him, and Wong and Sarah have this weird, like, maybe something, maybe not relationship. But the reason it's actually not a relationship is because Wong is betrothed to an unborn child.
Yeah.
But anyway, and that character,
that one doesn't
they brought
happen.
that character in, which was wild.
In a single line, literally watching it back.
A single word.
A single word. He yells "No, Sarah," but it's an aggressive, just nothing. But somehow Josh fucking heard that.
Yeah.
His cloak gets cut in the film, and that's a main point of the comic. And Ben, you picked up on it. In the comic, there's like these intense panels of him detailing it back. In the film, Christine, of that other universe does it. But there's a bit at the end where he's fixing his watch, and that's kind of that.
It feels very that,
Yeah. And then, of course, the biggest one, the literal biggest one, is...
Ben?
Rintra, or as we like to call him, Carrot, because the actor who played him played some random guy named Captain Carrot. In another product.
And that was like a weird multiversal show.
And it was like a multiversal British cop show or something.
Yeah, it was like a cop show, but across universes for some reason.
Can I just point out, makes no sense that Rintra was in this film. Like, 0 sense.
Sam, by the way, Rintra is, you would have seen him a few times. He's like a green kind of ox guy. The massive...
Oh, you would have
like
seen
a
him.
big minotaur almost looking
It's
guy.
pretty hard to miss him. He's there a lot. But he's never talking.
Yeah.
Everyone else at the Sanctum is human.
Yeah.
It's not established at all, like,
why
how
he's
he's
there.
here.
Yeah.
Like, has he come through a multiversal portal, which we've already discussed we can't travel between, so, like, what's going on there?
Or is he
like
an alien?
Is he,
is he an alien? Everyone is okay with him being there. Everyone just is like, yeah, it's my buddy.
only him
No
and
one
no
acknowledges like the fact he's a giant green furry
Ox-Man,
minotaur.
yeah.
And it's like, it's cool that you brought in the character. He's like a pretty common character across like a lot of Doctor Strange comics.
Yeah.
But like, explain it a little bit. Like, maybe just a little bit.
Sam was already uncertain about this film, but we've made him more confused.
No, because I was just thinking, because like my thought about him during the movie was I was like, okay, so where's his little story of how he's come to be? Because they used him for marketing material.
Yeah, he's on the posters.
Like he's on posters and t-shirts, William.
He's in he was the Marvel Legends builder figure.
He was. That's
right.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
It's bizarre. But I do have one thing that I need you boys to explain to me.
Please.
And that is what the hell happened in the post-credit scene. Because I've got no idea who that is.
Yeah.
Go.
So that is...
I also didn't.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I was sitting next to Will and Ben.
So that is Clea, who... I remember one part. There's two parts of this, but she is the niece of Dormammu. And she is the Sorceress Supreme of the Dark Dimension. So she's basically Doctor Strange in the evil realm. Which is why she's like... We got to deal with some shit because you've kind of fucked up that. So let's go deal with it. She's also eventually his wife as well.
Then, the main love interest in the comics. Christine Palmer barely exists in the comics. So it's like... Which
is super sad because she was phenomenal in this film. And I really thought we were building to her becoming Clea, basically. But it seems like that's left for... It seems like she might come back in the same kind of role, but... The love interest angle is probably put to bed, as it were. It's probably over, which is sad. Because, I thought she was great in this. An Easter egg that I think, Ben, you and I got excited about is when they're in the the strange dark dimension, when she has to fight all the demons, she picks up the cauldron of the cosmos. Is that? No, it's called.
So, yeah.
And that is the first thing Strange picks up in the first film, and he's gonna use it. And Caecilius is like, "You don't know how to use that, do you?" And so she does, and it's a nice kind of like symmetrical moment between the two films. And also the tea. I didn't pick up on the tea, and you said it in the cinema, and I was like, "What the fuck's Ben on about?" But I realized the second time.
When Doctor Strange first goes to Kamar-Taj in the first film, when he has that fantastic trip. One of the best scenes in the MCU, in my opinion. When he first meets the Ancient One, he's like, "What did you put in this tea?" And then when they go to the 838 Sanctum in this, and they start going, "Woo, looks far worse than it did in the first Doctor Strange film." It's just like this. They just physically they stretch the camera. It's very odd. And he has the same line where he's like, "Oh, what did you put in this tea?" Yeah.
So I found it. And the best one, this comes from Reddit, and I stupidly didn't. I cropped out the person who said the. Oh, no, actually, I kept the person that said the fact. So someone said, did you pick up the chart in the 60s, which is a line he said to read about the Fantastic Four, which obviously Fab Four is the Beatles. Like, that's kind of probably how the reference kind of goes. But the Fantastic Four was an actual band in the 60s that charted. And if Doctor Strange is the man that knows all about music and old songs, that actually may be the angle they're taking with that reference.
That makes that line make so much more sense, because to me it was like, oh, did the Fantastic Four exist in the Marvel Universe? Do we know who they are already? But no, that makes way more sense than I 100% think they were going for that. Yeah. Which
is fun. And again, it's a nice nod to an element of his character that is seemingly so random in that first film. It ties to him being able to remember and gain knowledge quickly, but it's such a fucking stretch.
Yeah.
But that's kind of it, unless anyone's got any other big qualms or good bits of the no good bits. Okay, everyone's out of good bits for the film. I guess
I think we covered most of it.
Totally. Yeah. The film, for me, as I've said, it's very good. I saw it twice. I think twice is a good amount for any B-grade Marvel film, and I think that it's perfect for this. I think the biggest thing for me is I wish it had more of a dramatic shift on the Marvel Universe. It very much starts and ends in almost the exact same place. The only difference is that extra eye. Nothing really has shifted in the Marvel Universe. Yeah. Wanda is still gone and without children. It's a very open-shut book of a film, but maybe that's not a bad thing. Cool.
For me, it's just it came out the same day as the Moon Knight finale, and that's the one I've been thinking about more in the past week than I have this film.
Yeah. Yep.
So that probably says it all, really, which is a bit of a shame when it's called the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah. Anyway, Yeah.
I'll just add quickly, and like, because I've heard a lot of people complaining about the fact it doesn't really connect much with Loki. Like, were you guys expecting it to?
I would have expected it to if No Way Home had done anything with it. I think that the fact that No Way Home didn't really touch Loki's multiversal stuff, I kind of was like, they'll touch it on like Ant-Man 3 when Kang is actually there. Once Kang has a presence in the film, I'm sure that's when everything will kind of connect. But it's fair. He did open the multiverse.
Yeah, and we have seen, 3 or 4 different ways that the multiverse has now been opened. They just keep showing the ways.
According to Feige, the idea is that the multiverse can be opened multiple times. That's fine. The thing that Loki did was remove the TVA, because if the TVA was still there, they would have stepped in and been like, well, prune, done.
Okay.
The fact that it can even be opened is the fault of Loki. It shouldn't be able to break because the TVA have been there. Yeah. So that actually wasn't it was the multiverse opening but not breaking. We're seeing these tears happening through these films.
I think they
which is fucking vague.
One thing I just want to say on that is that I think they need to clear up some terminology that they're working on. Yeah. Because they've got timelines, multiverses, and all these like different terms for it at the moment, and it's not clear exactly what is what. Obviously, as soon as you get into like multiverse stuff and time travel, and it's all gonna get messy. Yeah. Like we acknowledge, it's a Marvel film. It's not supposed to make total sense. Yeah. But I am at the point where I'm like,
I'd like some rules.
Until you cleared that up for me, I was like, oh, maybe it's just like separate because they talk a lot more about timelines in that, and this is about multiverse, and then. Also, in like the first Doctor Strange, they talk about the Dark Dimension being part of the multiverse, but then it's kind of a separate universe. So it's this kind of thing where, I don't know, just put like a thing on Marvel.com. These are the rules of the multiverse.
It's such a funny, because for everything the Marvel is like clearing up in terms of comics, like giving the Hulk an end and giving Captain America, like giving characters closure, they're still struggling to create rules for things that even the comics have never been able to manage. And as a film universe that our parents have to try and understand, it would be nice for it to be a bit more consistent, for sure. I totally get you there. But we should stop talking about this movie that we didn't actually enjoy. It's one of those things that when I export a podcast for the Batman, which is like an hour 10, and it's like, well, we really enjoyed this. But then I export a podcast for Loki that's 2 hours. It's like, I feel like we talk too much about Loki. Yeah. What the fuck? So let's put a pin in this one for now. I'm sure we'll come back to it at the end of the year when this is somehow the best movie that came out and Thor is terrible. It won't happen. Until the next time, though, I hope not. Please do subscribe if you're on YouTube. If you're not on YouTube, give us a follow on Spotify or wherever you are. If you're on those audio places and you do want to get to that other place I was talking about, go youtube.com. I'm going to try that again. youtube.com/each to their own. And if you want to support us, you can go to patreon.com/each to their own. Just $3 will get you into our super secret Discord. Speaking of Discord, Sam, you're in there. Where can they find you if you're not in there?
If I'm not in there, you can find me on Instagram at Sam's Studio AU. I do a bunch of random artwork that you can have a look at if you're interested. So that's an option for you as well. But give us your money first, and then you can get the link for that.
I think that's a good. Yeah, that's true. You should make it a private Instagram account. They can only get to it. Don't do that.
OnlyFans.
Only fans can get into the Instagram account. And you, Ben, where can they find you?
You can find me around the place here, sometimes streaming with Josh as well, doing some Halo sometimes, maybe other games in the future. And I will also, haven't been doing it all in the past month because I've been a very busy boy, but I stream a decent amount over on twitch.tv/ArgonTV. So you can come hang out over there. Video games. I like doing reaction streams to stuff at stupid hours of the morning over there. So that's
keen for some 3 a.m. Xbox, Ben, in July or June. Whatever.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. So go subscribe now. Like subscribes, give me the money now in advance for June. Yeah. So I will be doing that. Yep. Yeah, but you got to make sure you give the money now.
Otherwise, you won't do it.
Otherwise, you won't.
I won't do it at all.
No. You've got to reach a certain threshold. So the more people. It's a secret threshold. So the more people subscribe...
OnlyFans.
He'll get there.
Yeah. On OnlyFans, of course.
And he streams there. Where do we stream?
We stream at twitch.tv/ettonline, E-T-T online. Come check us out. Come have some fun. Come. That's where Ben and I also stream, but Will and I generally stream every Monday. It's been a busy
Mondays.
So yeah, so we'll
And
get
Sam
back to
and
it.
Will also stream there, so you get all of us at various points.
This
in
is
time.
true. Yeah, Sam does too.
We're all on that channel.
We
It's so
are.
good.
We are. So come check us
Who would
out.
have thought?
Come.
Give us a follow. Give us your money. Give us your damn money.
Here's your money. Let's fucking finish this thing.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, man. Let's finish this thing into the multiverse of let's go to fuck out of the. Till next time, I've been Will.
I've been Josh.
I've been Sam.
I've been Ben.
Let's go to town hall. Yay!